Hello. I thought I'd talk to you today a little bit about the FCAT and about legislation that appears to be passed and might be signed by the governor shortly, our budget, including the legislative implications on our budget, and finally some of the challenges that we always face as the school year closes for another year. So let's start with the FCAT that we have really come to some closure with for this school year, except for the EOC portion that continues throughout May. Certainly, that has become more and more challenging each year, particularly with the expansion of the computer-based assessment. Although not all of you are teachers and see that implication, I think it's important that everyone understands the tremendous challenges our schools face to navigate through the scheduling process in a very secure environment that allows us to assess all those students that are required to take the FCAT in such a way that ensures that we're really measuring their true abilities. Certainly, as we have more and more computer-based assessment, the scheduling becomes more challenging. As we look for the coming years, that challenge even becomes greater. And many of our technology decisions are going to be based on an understanding of what we have to accomplish with this online assessment. So I really deeply appreciate all the work from so many staff members to give our students the best environment for this assessment. District level people are out working at schools. Teachers are working with all types of student groups. Aides are monitoring. All staff are really focused on making sure that all students have the best potential assessment scores that truly measure what they know and are able to do. So I am deeply appreciative of all those efforts. As we move into the May EOC testing, which has its own challenges, there appears to be some relief with some legislation that has been signed by the governor that does allow some differentiation on our standard diploma. The standard diploma will still require the Algebra 1 EOC passage for all students. However, they are allowing some flexibility on the must-pass type of EOC test. The EOC tests of geometry and biology and U.S. history will still be in place, but it will be allowed a 30% of the final grade instead of a must-pass. But those students that wish to have a scholar designation must reach that higher standard. We're hoping that this has some relief for the amount of retesting and really the tracking of students to determine if they're in the 30% cohort or the must-pass cohort for their graduation class. So there'll be a lot more information about that new legislation, but I think that has some positive implications for those students that really are worthy of a standard diploma, but perhaps weren't prepared to meet such a high bar, such as completion of chemistry or physics, and so many of those EOCs at a very high level. There's also a designation called a merit designation, which has to do with substituting industry certifications and some of our career technical programs with some of the requirements of a standard diploma. As in any complex legislation, we have to really receive additional information to get full clarity on how we interpret it. But we'll be working with our staff and ultimately with our students and their families as they make some important decisions as to which diploma designation they would like to achieve. Other legislation is also confusing, although it has not all been signed, and so we are not even sure for some of the proposed legislation if it will go into implementation. But there are some things that greatly impact the work as we move forward. Even in the legislation I was just speaking about, which the governor has signed, they have reinforced again the requirement that in 1415 we must have student measures measuring proficiency or growth for all subject areas at all grade levels, which continues to be an overwhelming challenge as we approach 1415. We also know in the budget deliberations, which although the governor's was very positive and we initially based our budget on the governor's recommendations, what has actually been proposed in the Senate and the House were not quite as positive and have implications in how we fund virtual school, the part-time within the day and outside of the day, the fees associated with dual enrollment and the loss of FTE for both of those programs, and even how we might access our instructional materials allocation. All of those types of bills and language, whether it's in proviso language with the budget or conforming language, has an impact on the expenses that we're projecting for the next school year and the amount of revenues that we will get from our students. It makes our budget situation extremely challenging. We are hopeful to see some relief on the class size so that we could at least be at the average by level, and that's not clear if that is going to pass. And in addition, we have those challenges within the budget that have to do with teacher pay. Additional line items that are in both the House and the Senate, and we expect to come out of that conferencing process. However, it's still very unclear of how that is to be implemented. We have not opened collective bargaining yet because of all these questions, but we plan to do that in the very near future. But even with that process, it appears that we will have to get approval from DOE in how those dollars are to be used. And it also appears that it will have implications in terms of teacher performance. In other words, there has to be a relationship between the students' assessment data and the teachers' potential pay increases. So many questions that we have yet to see answers for that makes the future a little bit cloudy. I think as we go through this budgeting process, it's so frequently that we feel the frustration of not controlling so many of these difficult decisions. We have moved forward with some very difficult decisions this year as part of that budgeting process. The elimination of our media specialists at the middle and high school, the elimination of Phoenix Academy. All of those decisions I truly would not have been made except for the continued loss of revenues that we see and the loss of our savings account money that have helped buffer us through these difficult years. But the difficult decisions have been made and we are moving forward. And hopefully we'll be able to have that staffing process that might involve many of you completed before you leave for the summer. That is our hope, so people can begin to make decisions, and even just as important, that we are able to post those vacancies and have high quality candidates by having a more lengthy time to advertise positions so that we can fill those positions with certified teachers or qualified individuals. That's key as we move forward. As we approach the end of the school year, there always appear some additional challenges. How we keep our students focused on teaching and learning, that instructional component that doesn't end after the FCAT. How we keep our high school students with all of their EOCs and some of the additional assessments focused on instruction and really showing their best performance at this closure of the school year. We always seem to have more discipline issues as we move forward, students anxious to see summer come, not quite as focused on what they need to be doing. So we need to work together, show our students that instruction doesn't end at the end of the school, towards the end of the school year, and try to use every minute engaging our students in their learning. And that's something that all staff can focus on, whatever your area of responsibility, encouraging our students to stay focused, to make sure the end of the year has meaning. I am very appreciative of what each one of you do to really help us perform at the highest level on our primary mission, the teaching of our students. We are very appreciative of this community that continues to give additional revenues to help supplement the budget that we receive from the state. As we approach next year, we'll make that decision of extending the referendum again. And we know that is an all-consuming process, but so important for us as we move forward in the state of affairs of our revenue sources from the state that so desperately need that supplement. I am thankful for everything you do, and I believe the community also appreciates that work. The decisions we make on a daily basis do have an impact on our students' lives and our future as an organization. So let's stay focused for the rest of the school year, knowing that that's just as important as the start of the school year. And we will close this year feeling very proud of what our students have accomplished and what our staff has accomplished. Thank you.